Hey everyone. So, there's already a couple people here. Great. Let me get my people in here. Mr. Poole, I'm going to bring you right into the conversation. So it's good to have everyone back. It's good to be back. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm sitting in my gallery, as I think everyone can clearly see. What's happening, Taylor?
Hey, I brought a little friend with me today.
Ah, wow.
Olivia, can you say hi? Kind of. Wow.
That's close enough to hi for me.
That's very close to hi. Yeah.
My daughter says hi to me in passing. Actually, that's not true. That's completely unfair. So, anyways, I'm sitting in my gallery and I have something interesting planned for today. We're going to be looking at the front and back of a photograph that changed politics in
Ooh,
Germany
exciting.
by a photographer who's actually from Cologne, and he's one I've championed. And I have two different pictures from the same sitting, which I want to discuss as well. Schargesheimer,
Mm.
one of my favorites. And I'll start by bringing up the picture. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to do one thing: is I'm going to set my timer because I have promised myself that I would try and keep these shows to a half hour, and so that people will actually watch the whole show and
Right.
not like fade out after a while. So here it comes. 1 second.
Yeah. Wow.
So this is a fairly well-known picture. This picture was taken in 1955 or 54, actually. The other print is from later, but this particular picture here comes from a sitting where Schargesheimer was portraying. Was portraying Adenauer, and this picture ended up on the cover of the Spiegel, which Adenauer was not particularly happy about. He was not
Why is
only not
that?
happy, he was actually quite upset by the fact that this picture ended up being on the cover because he looks like a corpse.
That's
Which,
the last thing I would think of, but I can understand from a personal point of view.
like, if you see this, like all this action here, I mean, it literally looks like his skull is just wrapped, with somewhat old skin.
Right.
His eyes are completely blackened out. There's little to no humanity in it at all. It's just this very, very hard, harsh portrait.
Yeah.
And to top all of that off, this is actually the print that was sent to the Spiegel. It's not just a print of the picture that went to Spiegel. It is the actual piece of paper that was sent to the Spiegel that was used for the reproduction, for the cover. And on the back here, he says, loosely translated, please don't retouch or spray paint this picture any further. It's been done already.
Mm.
Thank you very much. The colloquialisms of how he says it are, a bit tongue in cheek. I think that that's really interesting because Schargesheimer, for all of his brilliance, was so brilliant that people tend to assume that a lot of the things that he did were almost accidental. I have pictures where he worked with a reverse developer, Roten Bügelsalz. Was I don't know what the chemical term for it is. It's a material that's used to lighten up or to remove contrast and remove exposure in areas of a picture that become too dark. Very popular in the 50s and 60s, even up into the late 70s. And he would leave this chemical on certain pictures long enough to make parts of them brown, and other parts would not be brown. So he was very, very intentional with it. And every time a regular photography lover would come and see one of these pictures and see this brown tone, they would think, oh, wow. So this is another one of those Walker Evans, I didn't wash it enough issues. Well, it's not, because they've had the exact same brown tonality from day one. And for all the years that we've had them, they haven't changed. So, getting some other people in here. Come on, Ron. So this is this one print, and now I'm going to show you a different picture from the same sitting. And unfortunately, I forgot that my webcam that I wanted to set up for this has USB, like USB 2 plug, and my laptop has USB-C, and I don't have an adapter here, or else I would have had them laying on the table and we could have looked at them side by side. I apologize, but technique. Anyway, so let me get the other picture. And this other picture is an absolute rarity. This is just a loose print, so I have to be a bit more ginger with it.
Wow.
This is a beautiful portrait. I mean, it's just as dark, but the whole language of it is much, much different. This is much more of a monument to Schargesheimer. The picture kind of showing him isolated out of the background, no context of space. It's just his visage and this kind of whatever hero-like rendering of him. Clearly taken on the same day because he didn't photograph Adenauer twice. I think it's really interesting to see how much different the two portrayals are, and the fact that he chose the one to send to Spiegel and not this one.
Yeah.
This is probably the picture that Adenauer would have liked to have had on the cover. The hero of Germany, the guy who was broken after World War II. And I got this print from there's a collector who came to the gallery about 6 weeks ago, brought this with him, said that he and a friend found it in the attic of his friend's father's house. Which, I mean, you have to understand that that's not going to. I'm in Cologne, and Schargesheimer was from Cologne, so I'm kind of at Schargesheimer Central. Like, I'm in the house where the most Schargesheimers pop up, which is good. And I try and buy as many of them as I can. Hold on, I gotta let Bill in here real quick. Gotta put this picture down for a sec. So there we go. There's our next panelist. And then on the reverse of this, it's just signature, and that's it. And you'll note that on the back of this picture, there's no Schargesheimer family or Schargesheimer archive stamp on the back. Those stamps were all put on the back of the pictures by Schargesheimer's in-laws, because Schargesheimer killed himself. Oh, sorry, you guys are talking to my chin. Sorry about that. So Schargesheimer committed suicide at the end of 1970, 71, New Year's Eve. And his wife then inherited everything he had. And then she killed herself a year later, which is, I mean, it's a tragedy. And so everything that she had then went to her parents. And they were the ones who had this stamp made where they would stamp on the back of every picture unique Schargesheimer print. And if you find pictures that don't have that stamp on it, that means that they were owned by somebody else during Schargesheimer's lifetime. So that's an important thing to kind of keep an eye on, see what's out there and where it comes from. Anyways, so coming back to the initial picture here, let me bring this back up. This picture in its subtlety, there's Andre, we'll bring in. Um, this changed Germany's view on Schargesheimer, on Adenauer, and that's one of these things that that I've spoken to in the past is photography really does have the power to form opinions. And there's any number of seminal pictures that we've seen. The sailor and the woman kissing, like that famous scene. I think in New York City is one of those pictures, or the soldier being shot is another one of those pictures which kind of ingrains itself into memory. Or I think it was Dan McCullen who took the portrait of the soldier who was just completely spaced out. Oh, Audrey likes Jane Fonda apparently. That's funny. Um,
What was that?
I have no idea. It's just I'm looking at the panelist group and I see Andre and he's got a picture of Jane Fonda
Wow.
from like 1980. Crazy. So, anyways, so this is on my continuing journey to try and get people to understand, not you guys, because we're all here because we all love the medium and we love what we're doing. But for my viewing audience on social media and around the world who have not joined us here in the conversation, this is another example of work and the way photography, in its subtlety and its precision, is much more complex than I think the general audience tends to think. So, anyways, let me look at my clock. Good. So I killed 10 minutes telling you all about that story. So how is everybody?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have
I get my vaccine shot tomorrow.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
They're hard to get.
Yeah. Yeah, we just heard some news here in Germany today on the way coming down here, that one of the vaccines is not being is only being allowed to be used for patients under 65 years of age. The Moderna vaccine, because they've had some issues with it, and so anyone who's over 65, they're not allowed to give that vaccine to them, which is interesting.
Yep. I will have the Pfizer vaccine, a second shot tomorrow.
So you survived the first war. Survived. Sorry about that. Wrong word.
No reaction at all, except for just a sore arm for a day or two.
Yeah.
They do say the second shot can be have a stronger reaction, but I don't expect one. Anyway, it's better than a ventilator.
Indeed.
Hey, Andy.
And you need to turn your mic on.
I'll let Andrew say something before I ask a question.
Sorry. I thought you might enjoy seeing a Schargesheimer, a very different one. I'm sorry, the reflection is so bad. Do you know this picture, Julian? It's called Rural Afternoon.
It looks like it's from the Ruhrgebiet.
There's a train going by, and if you look, there is, sorry, I'm doing a terrible, there's a woman in a garden right there, the other corner.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic, I bought this from your parents, Julian, in Washington. It must be 45 years ago.
Well, you need a partner to go with that picture? His cityscape pictures are fascinating. There's a whole bunch of them that he did in the Ruhrgebiet with this gigantic camera, like this, and most of the frames are crooked, because the camera was so damn heavy. But Schargesheimer had really an extraordinary eye for detail, and it was I like to think of Schargesheimer as kind of one of those guys who was so in control of what he was doing that he could make things appear accidental on purpose. Like the content of the images, the more you look at them, the more you realize that there really is it's not accidental. It's just not.
No.
I saw a collage, or actually, it's a picture of the Cologne Carnival that I looked at when I was looking through the Schargesheimer collection at the Museum Ludwig with Miriam Svast a couple of years ago. I think like 3 years ago. And there's one picture, and you look at it, and it's just like a mass of people partying, right? Because it's Carnival. And you look closer and you realize that he's actually cut two pictures onto each other. It's two separate pictures that are glued onto each other, but he's done it so well that when you look at the picture, you can't see it. It's an extraordinary picture.
Yeah.
And he was looking for something very particular. And so he took the time to make that particular picture, which actually just looks like he turned around and took a snapshot. But he perfected that exact snapshot to present exactly what he wanted to have in it. You know, and that's, again, it's one of those things that I think is just fascinating in photography. That's kind of the lengths you have to go to, because you can't decide where the people are because you don't have a brush or a pencil to paint or draw them there. So.
Julian, what do you think of the Schargesheimer books, which I think are quite extraordinary?
I love them. You know, it's they're harsh. I did an exhibition in Cologne and Bonn a couple of years ago where we I have one copy of Köln 35, which actually I've got more than one copy of it, but the one copy that I'm thinking of, someone had cut it open, cut it apart, so it was just loose pages. But you know, I mean, I didn't do it. That's the way I got it. Gave me a great opportunity to reproduce every single image. And so what I did is I reproduced the entire book, and I framed all of those reproductions, and I hung the entire book on the wall. And then I made a model of the fair stand that he did at Photokina, based on the photographs that my father had taken of the Photokina stand, which he found in his negative rolls somewhere, like in his contact sheets. So I made this model and reproduced this entire thing. Again, you know, highly precise, very, very meaningful, very intentional, but not easily understood because it doesn't speak the language of, you know, kind of popular formalism, neither then nor now. How many Schargesheimers do you have? One.
Just that one, which I'm very I'm very happy with.
I believe it. That's a big print too.
Yeah, yeah. It's no, it's. I'm sorry. As I say, the reflection is so bad, but there you get some idea of what.
Yeah.
And that train going by in the background is just amazing. And then, as I say, the woman in the other corner, it's just a superb picture.
Yeah. The diagonal on the upper edge, not too dramatic, but still enough for perspective.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Sure.
Ruth and I were just talking about this photograph that Andrew has, and we're just wondering, how is it so beautiful? Like, what is about this photograph? This, I don't know. Is it the camera? Is it the perspective? Is it just this beautiful story within a modern neighborhood that seems kind of fairy tale? Like,
I think it's a great question. To me, there's something about the geometry of the roofs, the little detail of the woman bent over, you know, in her garden, and then the train going by just at that moment that leaves that incredibly, you know, that trail of steam. Mm-hmm. And it's just, to me, this is what photography does best. It's just, you're never going to see this again, you know, and all of the elements are somehow working together within the frame. I can't think of another way to describe it, but I'm sorry, also just getting frustrated by this, but
compositionally, there's some really interesting things happening there. The clouds coming from the smoke coming from the train, the upper edge is parallel to the upper edge of the image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that settles and kind of puts a foundation on that upper triangle. The angles of that triangle they're enough to give a sense of movement, but not enough to cause aggression.
Mm.
It's not a diagonal that's unpleasing or challenging, and it's nicely balanced out by the angle coming from the rooftop in the front of the front of the image, which is kind of creating a triangle or the upper edges of a triangle, which then compositionally tends to bring more calm into the picture.
Yeah. And
The lines of all the roofing, they all seem to kind of flow into each other.
Mhm.
Like the position he's taken that photograph from, there's all these lines that the eye can follow through and see. You know, you can go from this edge, you come up, and then you go up this roof, and you go over there, and then you come to the diagonal, and then you go back down. And you can just kind of maze your way through the image. So it actually kind of walks you through it. And all the same, if I'm seeing it correctly, well, it's not a window in the roof, the closest roof or the closest full roof, that main building in the front. But that dark spot in it centers that object. The vertical surface coming down lighter from the bottom brightens up the bottom edge, so it's not going from dark into light, so it's not as dramatic. If it were just dark to light, then it would be, a much more kind of again, heroic type of image. And that roof there is almost perfectly centered inside of the frame. So you look at it, it's a center object right inside the middle of the picture.
Yeah.
And then you have all these stories happening around it. And so no matter how you look at it, if you want to have a quick look or if you want to have a deep look, there's always something to find. That's what I see in the picture anyway.
I think that's beautifully said.
Yeah. I guess, as I look at it longer, it's true that this couldn't be more of a perfect moment, because a train passing by with the woman sweeping or whatever she's doing.
I think she's watering.
Watering?
Yeah, I think so.
Subjects being at the opposite, well, the train isn't in the corner, but with the smoke and everything, like the opposite ends of the frame at the same time. It's just that perfect luck in a way.
Yeah. You know, there's that famous Kertész photograph called Meudon, where a guy is carrying a wrapped parcel and he's walking in front of this thing that looks like an aqueduct, and a train is going over just at that moment. And there's something about that same kind of split second symmetry and
Mm-hmm.
poise that is happening in this picture.
Mm-hmm. I also like how the woman, I mean, obviously humans are smaller than buildings, but she really looks like a miniature person, a very tiny person in the midst of these giant buildings and this giant train, and she's being swallowed up by her own scenery.
Has a great sense of scale. I mean, it's got all the things in it that give it a human scale.
Yeah.
The woman being there makes you immediately understand how large everything is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be the same picture. It wouldn't be as good a picture if she weren't there.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a story my father's told me quite often when he was a kid living in Kuhausen.
From it.
He
of an interior where the woman is sitting in her chair, and there are at least 3 sleeping cats, but through the window, it looks like it must be 10 feet away, is this thundering train going by. And obviously not a composed shot in terms of fabrication, but a real shot in real time. And it has that same kind of poetry to it, Andy. I also think that the size of that photograph is the photographer saying, this image is important. It is one you can look at and analyze and relish in. If it were a small snapshot, it might have been just a casual shot, but this is an intentional effort to make a photograph that the artist thought said something, and it does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
the intersection of geometry and chance. So many successful pictures
Yeah,
have those two elements.
And the little bit of, you know, what we were talking about, the little bit of narrative, you know, with the woman down. Sorry, I'm just.
That's fine.
Uh,
You should really get some museums class on that.
I should.
You should.
This is UV protective, but
Yeah, it's I don't frame anything without museums glass anymore, except for pictures where they really need it. Like there's certain images, like I have photos from Dennis Oppenheim that because of the way he worked, it makes perfect sense to have plexiglass on them because that's exactly the time frame when he was working. Those are the only pictures that I don't put museum glass on. Well, it's worth the investment.
the museum glass is the non-reflective or the non-glare. Yeah,
non-glare glass, UV protection, all of that.
Yeah,
And
I have to do that.
if you're not sending the picture around on tours or loaning it out to museums or anything, then and it's staying primarily at your house, then it's perfectly safe to do that.
Yeah.
So, but I did want to say, I wanted to tell one quick story, which I think I've told before, but I'll tell it again just briefly. My father, when he was a kid, was living with August in Kuhausen, and he went with him sometimes to photograph. And one of these trips was a photograph of Graf Nonnenwert. It's an island in the middle of the Rhine River. And they went to take the photograph, set everything up, looked, waited, didn't take a picture, packed everything back up, went home. Did that 3 days in a row. And at some point, my dad said, Opa, why do we keep coming back here? And why do you not take a picture? And he said, well, you see up there the clouds and the way the light comes in, it's not right yet. And when it's right, I'll take the picture. And that picture and our discussion about what's in that Chargesheimer reminds me of that story and of the fact that, again, you know, the things that look so accidental in photography, you don't have the option of changing it. You work with what's there. And your narrative comes out of the reality that you're seeing and the way that you're positioning yourself to look at it to create an image out of what you see. And I think that that's an extraordinarily challenging thing, which a lot of people kind of don't think about because no one really spends the time to actually dig in and look at pictures, you know, take them apart and see what's in it and compare it to other things. And I think, you know, that's one of these, you know, one of the unfortunate side effects of a very flat society, or not flat. Michael Summeroff and I were discussing this a couple of years ago. The speed at which society works now has taken some of our ability to go in depth because you can't go deep and fast at the same time. It doesn't really work. You know, it's kind of like connected sides of a triangle. One gets shorter, the other one changes. And I think that that's something that really needs to come back. You know, because there's a lot of things that people are just not seeing, or you know, are great to discover if you take the time to do it.
Yeah. Friends, I have another meeting at 3:30, but it's good to see everyone. I think one can still say Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy, not quite, you know, a little bit older than New Year, but everybody be well. I look forward to their getting together again.
It was great having you. Thanks for sharing the picture with us.
Thank you.
All right, and we are just a few minutes shy of a half an hour. And since I'm going to be doing these every week, I've promised myself that I would do them every week and that I would try and keep them to a half hour so that the people who look at them online afterwards don't have to scroll through an hour and a half conversation.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like hanging out with you guys. I do, but and again, if anyone has topics or ideas, things that they want to discuss, or like Andy brought in that one picture today, if there's a picture that someone has that they wanted to bring up and we discuss it here, I'm very happy to do so. So take the opportunity if you can get it. I was also written, just briefly, I was written to by, that's the woman with a Russian name, Marina Dashinov. I'm completely butchering that name. So we've agreed to, she's a gallerist, a younger gallerist from New York City, who's been doing work to try and keep the young contemporary artists afloat inside New York, particularly considering the pandemic and all that. We've been kind of skirting around trying to figure out a way to get together. She wrote me tonight, so I think we're going to be doing a meet and greet like Tom and I had, to discuss, her take on where things are going and my take on where things are, and kind of chew the fat a bit about gallery business.
Great. How was Sean Hemmerly's exhibition in January or this month?
The gallery is closed.
Oh, it's closed.
Yeah, we've been closed since December. It's really depressing. It's a beautiful show.
Then where did I read that it was open till February 2nd or 3rd or 4th or something?
Well, we're not going to say what would I say otherwise? There's nothing on the walls. Don't come to the gallery. We're in hibernation mode. I don't know how else to say it. It shows up on the wall, and the gallery lights are on 24/7. And if you go up to the gallery and look through the window, you can see the pictures. But that's just not the same thing.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
So call ahead is the order of the day.
Yeah, call ahead. And I discovered today, or we were sent emails from Art Cologne. It's been postponed from May till November again. So it was from May to November last year, and then to May this year, and now it's November.
Yeah.
This year, which I think is a smart move to do. I think the Köln Messe and Daniel have put the time in. They actually had a really good concept for how to do the fair live with social distancing and all of that, using an app that would check proximity to other people and make sure that there weren't too many people in a certain space at the same time. Very, very smart stuff. But Germany locked down before they could implement it, which is unfortunate. So, anyways, well, Bill, I hope your second shot goes as good as the first one did.
Thank you.
And keep us abreast of how you're doing. And
if I wanted to show some pictures, could I send them to you and then you figure out a way to display them?
Sure.
I only have them digitally, but I'm thinking of a group of 70 or so large format prints I've just given to the Ringling Museum that are a survey of 25 years of the LGBT images that a photographer from New York, Lynn Prince, created. And some of them are rather remarkable. Nudes of Sally Mann's daughter, Jessie, for example. It turns out that, well, I won't comment about her, but she has a fluid sexuality, so she fits the theme. But then there are events in New York, there are wonderful portraits, Quentin Crisp and a topless Debbie Harry with a whip, things like that. Anyway, it would be fun. Maybe I'll send you a dozen, and if you can figure out a way to display them, I can tell you what's going on.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to have to be careful with the nudity because that'll get me banned or locked out of various platforms. So I may have to do some black taping digitally to make sure that
I will pick some that aren't no children or animals were hurt in the making of these pictures.
Right. Exactly. Good. Well, it's good to have you all here again, and I'm glad that this is actually working. I thought I'd be alone for the first couple shows, so I'm glad that everyone's here.